Hello out there. Welcome to the No Shit Cast. I'm your host, Matt Frazier. Well, thanks for joining us on our journey into the Internet College of Infinite Knowledge. My co-pilot for this evening's festivities, as usual, none other than the great wizard of historical knowledge himself, Mr. Eric D. Smith. How are you tonight, Mr. Smith?
Terrible, but...
Terrible.
I'm adapting like a fish out of water, though.
So you're growing legs and getting rid of your gills? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Moving on up to the east side to a deluxe apartment in the sky.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Damn, look at you.
Not in the ocean.
Not on the ocean, no. So, show 2 after being back from coronavirus lockdown. So, this has been kind of fun. All of a sudden, things more important going on than coronavirus. It's kind of happened all at once, and then fucking boom, America's on fire.
Oh, yeah, they're just trying to cleanse that virus, I think. Making sure it's out of all the stores and cities and,
Yeah, it's crazy. I actually have, to tie my online gaming friends, family back into the thing, and while all of this was going on, like the especially at night, the rioting and stuff, I've been playing games with people who live in some of these cities, and it's happening like outside their window. As it's really surreal to have someone go, hey, wait, hang on, I'll be back. I got to log out. I got to go see what's going on. And then they come back 20 minutes later, and you're like, hey, is everything all right? It's like, yeah, there's a lot of people outside screaming, and I just had to go make sure, it's like, wow, this is a different world now all of a sudden. Not that this kind of shit hasn't happened before, and I don't mean to imply that. I mean, like, the way that we are connected together sort of as a civilization, especially as Americans, from a communication type standpoint is different now. And it's like, people are able to sort of share things instantaneously, and there's a lot of new availability of information that we've never had. When say if we like the civil rights movement, with Dr. King and stuff like that. Imagine if things like cell phone video existed, or body cameras.
Sure.
Because this goes. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying, like, this is a whole new spin on all of this.
Yeah.
And I think it makes us all connected to it now in a way we've never been before. Like, no hiding anymore, Bubba. You know what I mean? Like,
there's still a lot of confusion.
Yeah, sure. And a lot more stuff is going to get sorted out, I'm sure, too. It's I know. Can you see us tap dancing around this, trying to make sure that, because, wow. I'm just observing right now and trying to take everything in, but I think some shit's going to be changing, bud. I think some shit's going to be changing.
Yeah, probably so.
Oh, and it's about fucking time, in a lot of ways. So,
hey, this has happened before. This is as my observation to all the people that were kindly pointing out, and who I agree with, that vandalism is not an appropriate form of protest, but after all, it was Jesus Christ that went in and
flipped over the tables in the temple.
Yeah, under protest of the money changers. And it was the Roman police action that was the catalyst in getting him strung up, crucified. It was a heavy-handed Roman police action over Passover.
Unfortunately, inside things like turmoil and instability come change.
Yeah, right. To your point, right? Yeah. A change coming.
There's a change coming, yeah.
As it has before.
I'm not going to make any predictions as to what that change is going to be, but I do feel that it's going to be a very positive thing overall, ultimately.
Yeah.
Like, the final venting of the frustrations and things of that nature. Like,
it was a similar time there. Jesus did that during Passover, and of course that's when the city would swell full of people from the outside and stuff, right? And there was a lot more tense Roman occupation. The Romans that were there, it was even more tense because of this, right? So basically a tinderbox waiting for somebody to start
light a
something.
match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know it feels very much the same way, doesn't it?
Yep. Pontius Pilate, the 5th governor of Judea, and the high priest Caiaphas were the two people that basically came down like a ton of bricks.
Yep. And then all hell broke loose, figuratively and literally.
And then the day of Pentecost, when everybody spoke the same language in Acts.
Mm-hmm.
So,
we're doing Bible comparisons now.
Well, no, sometimes people ask me when Christianity starts. Like, does it start when Jesus is
That's
born?
a really interesting philosophical question.
Is
too.
it when Christ is born?
When he's born, or is it when Christ dies?
Or his teachings.
Right.
Once he's done 3 years of his teachings, or when he's crucified on the cross, or when he's resurrected 3 days later, or 10 days later, or 50 with Pentecost, where the Holy Ghost kind of sweeps through everything, and all of a sudden everybody talks in tongues, that's where I think it's at, right? Because that's where the founding of the religion is. Once all that's transpired and these people all have the same experience.
You could sort of make the argument, too, that it was when the first prophecy was made about a Messiah.
Sure.
Which puts it back even much further, right?
Yeah, you could. Just an interesting question.
To ponder.
That could have been our show question. When did Christianity start?
You tell us in the comments. No, I don't care. I don't.
I care, but I don't read the comments.
Anyway. So big shout out to the Overwatch crew and for everybody that's having to go through some stuff right now. I guess we shall overcome, because what other choice do we have but to figure this shit out once and for all, hopefully. But anyway, so anything else going on, man? Anything new?
Shout out to all the people I love and all the people I hate.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Both, huh?
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't exist without either?
I suppose. I don't really hate anyone, I guess. Not that I can think of, really. Maybe.
I try to get rid of that shit, man. That stuff will eat you up.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's anybody, honestly, that I don't really like. There's people I don't like to be around sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anybody I don't really like.
Yeah, no, you can pretty much
contrary to episode 107.
Yeah, I know.
I swear to God, it's true. I don't dislike anyone.
And well, including Neil now.
I love Neil.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I actually friended Neil.
I know.
I get that he may be a little like, fuck you.
Yeah, right. He might.
I understand, but I do look at his posts and think, he's a cool guy, you know.
I tell you, man, I lately, not that Neil segues me into this in any way. I'm not saying.
And they're like, he's very like, how did I get involved in this?
Well, no, lately, in the last show we talked about the fucking videos and stuff, and the reason it made me think about it is because some of the stuff I've been sharing on Facebook, Neil's been like, "Fuck yeah," you know.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Some of the not that on the debunking kind of side. So yeah, but I've been getting so many. People have been sending me all kinds of crazy, batshit crazy.
It's crazy times.
Don't get me wrong. Some of it's really, really good. Yeah. You know, I still get a steady stream of pretty cool and interesting stuff from Sherfu to look at. You know, he and I have been sending videos and stuff and having a Facebook conversation back and forth. And like he'll be on the show again soon, I'm sure, coming up. But he's got to get his interwebs straightened out kind of thing, because we do video now and it's a sort of a higher demand for your data throughput and stuff to be able to be on the show. So it kind of limit. If you've watched the news anytime recently, you get the reason why.
Yeah,
because you can see it's like, how the fuck does that multimillionaire have such shitty internet access? You know,
right? Because it goes into the studio while they're at home.
Well, no, I mean, like there a lot of the people that because I channel surf all the major news networks, and it's one of the things I use. You know me, man. I'm like an aggregator, right? When it comes to news, data, and information, right? I have all these different sources that I use to sort of compile a narrative and information from, and it's the same methodology that I use to pick and find topics for the show. And so I've been doing a lot of the, hopping around to the different networks recently, trying to kind of get a consensus on what the hell's going on. I don't remember where the fuck we were going. Where we were going with that?
I'm not sure.
Must not be important.
But I have some other stuff.
What's that?
Well, I will be having a couple of songs coming out on a
All right, with Cat,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
record label out in California called Hack Attack International.
Yep.
I got a couple of offerings coming out there, maybe a third, depending. I'm not really sure. So yeah, like check that out in whatever way there is.
Well,
It's-
we'll be sharing it. Kat shares stuff, I mean, pretty much
Yeah.
directly to the group.
yeah,
'Cause she's one of like the original lineup guests.
Yes.
We've had her on twice.
episode 13.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Well, in the first 20 episodes,
Yeah.
right? She came on. That was great. And then blessed us with like a 3-hour freaking phone interview or something. It was also one of our first phone interviews. But
That and there's of course there's all the one that was already released last September.
yeah,
So I got that going on. I got
Yep.
a second album coming out, Bandcamp here in a couple of months.
you are prolific right now, dude, with the music
Yeah.
creation and production.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know what's going on with you, Bubba.
I mean,
it's good shit.
Well,
Keep
yeah. I
that
mean,
up.
I've always produced a lot,
Yeah.
pretty quickly, but now it's kind of getting sucked up.
I think it's just more visible.
Maybe
'Cause you're
I've
right,
just
yeah.
plugged at it and plugged at it and plugged at
Yeah,
it. Right?
finally it started to click with like convergence with me.
Yeah. And this is what, the 157th episode or 6th?
Yeah, I think it's 157.
So here we are.
Here we are.
57.
Yeah,
We've done this 150. You've done this 150.
I know, it's nuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I know. I look at that sometimes. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's like 2 hours each.
You'll add that up at the end of your life and you'll be like,
Yeah, hundreds of hours sitting with headphones on, talking to myself.
And maybe the majority of the time, not even on any kind of recording. Like
Yeah.
working the back, getting stuff ready,
Yeah,
preparing,
Oh,
getting
right, 'cause it's-
articles and just everything.
it's like 4 to 1.
Yeah.
It's like 4 hours for every production hours for every hour of show we do.
Yeah.
Which is why I started boiling us back really quickly from the 3-hour shows, because it's like, you fucking have time to do other things, people, and started making systems to help me kind of facilitate the topics and stuff like that.
My job's going well.
Yeah.
That's good. My relationship was going well.
Now, you don't know, you know much you're gonna know.
Oh, well.
C'est la vie.
Yeah.
Such is life.
Je te sais, vam de toi.
Right.
Or as the Klingons would say, Kutvak.
Fuck. Damn it.
That last bit's like you're saying a T, but you pull your tongue back from your teeth. So it's a like a
Okay.
Kutvak.
Okay.
That's how, yeah.
I'll speak Klingon with an accent and be okay with it.
I don't mean to nerd out on you and tell you how.
If I'm gonna like learn specific dialect inferences,
It's gonna be real.
it's gonna be Spanish.
Spanish,
I'm gonna roll my R's a
Hebrew.
lot better and things like that because I'll actually use that. I tell you what, if I'm ever in a position where I need to be able to speak fluent Klingon without an accent, I'll call you.
Well, kapla.
All right,
Success.
back at you.
Hey man, I got sign language too.
I know you do. Yeah,
I'm down with all the communication.
you're just a communicating fool.
Here we are in a podcast.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that earlier. How like everybody, you don't seem to have a problem talking to anybody.
Oh God, no. No. Mike called me up, and I was talking with him for the first time.
Oh, Mike Barnett.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
He said he was going to give you a holler.
Yeah. Shout out to Mike.
Hey, Mike.
But, yeah, call anytime.
He's up to something. He's sending me some really cryptic. He sends me this message. He goes, "Hey, I have a question for you," or something to that. I said,
What's the diameter of your garage?
I go, is it I need help with a math problem or I need bail money type question? Because he's a sailor buddy of mine. So
Yeah.
it could fucking be either end of the spectrum. I'm just trying to prepare myself for
whatever you need to
whatever
do.
this is going to be. I need to try to get my head around what did you do? And it was... I think he's working on something. I don't know if there's anything I can spill the beans on per se, but it was very technical stuff. Kind of.
Is he building
about-
a cyclotron in his garage?
I don't think it's anything like that. Yeah. I think it's more web based,
Ah.
or he's popping a front up for some endeavor or something. But
Interesting.
I didn't really get into it much beyond that with him. Last conversation I had with him was how to engineer, because he's losing his eyesight,
Mm-hmm.
and he was wondering, he wants like a walking stick that's ultra light, but that he could also use as a weapon. Because he's like really into martial arts and shit.
Yeah, very much like what the Daredevil uses.
Maybe
with
some,
the,
yeah. And
joysticks or
okay, he asked me
bow
about
sticks.
that, but I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But I think that's kind of along those lines. But then I was like, I'm not a mechanical engineer. You know what I mean? I'm a controls engineer. And I said, but I would think something like this must already exist. And then like 3 days later, I saw something pop up that was like this survival walking stick. Has like, it's like if Rambo had a walking stick is what it is, and it's like indestructible. They're smashing
knives on
bricks
the end
with
of
it.
it.
Oh yeah, like you unscrew it and flip it around, then it's a spear. And so I sent him the link. I'm like, here it is. Here you go. That's probably what
Maybe
you're
what you looking
and
for.
he's like, cool. I'm like, all right. That worked out.
Nice.
I don't mean to be outing our conversations together, but anyway. Love you, Mike. Anyway.
Love you.
So
Call me.
yeah, call me in. Actually, Reed had I forgot to put it in the lineup tonight. Sent me an article too about like micro robotics or whatever. He's out there kicking around some ideas. He's not settled on anything yet. He's brewing another.
It's going to be hard to top the last one.
That's his problem.
Yeah,
Like he told me that. He's like, fucking,
Yep.
why did I do that?
Because it was awesome.
And it was amazing. But now
Yeah.
he feels like an obligation to land something else that's like on that level.
It'll happen.
I have faith in Reed.
Yeah.
I mean, because he takes it serious.
Sometimes just having an open door is what you need.
Yeah.
Somebody that's waiting for that to happen. When
Yes.
it happens in their life, then they can share it with us, and we can share it with you guys.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. Yeah.
To know things.
And now that's the problem. It's like he's like, fuck, how do I top the White Album, man? Or whatever.
Right?
The White Album.
You just break up after that. That's what you do.
That just popped into my head because of Helter Skelter. And that was what the subject was. Charles
That
Manson.
stuff was all
See how I
planned.
tied that all together? Fucking slick right there, baby. All right, you want to do some articles?
I would like to do articles.
Okay, so this first one comes from the mirror.uk. Monkeys run away with coronavirus test samples after attacking a lab technician. Isn't this how, I've never seen it, but I'm guessing something similar to this, how Planet of the Apes begins or some shit? Like, there's a dystopian movie of some sort in here, right?
Well, if it dealt with time travel, yes.
Yeah.
Because an ape from the future goes back in time, so he was already able to talk, right? And then he leads the other apes who can't really talk into revolt, and
Okay.
eventually uplifts them over generations to be talking apes. And then eventually one is born that goes back in time.
That becomes an astronaut that goes back in time. Is that sort of the
Essentially.
premise? Like it's a loop?
Yes. You could literally watch any of those old ones from any point and follow it. It goes in a circle.
The original 3 is what you're talking
Four.
about. Or 4.
Yeah.
Pardon me. I
Yeah.
know it's sort of a religious thing with the fans of that franchise. But Mark Wahlberg's version's not in that loop?
Oh, dude, that's the worst version ever. That was Tim Burton.
Right, Tim Burton.
Oh,
yeah.
my God. And see, look, the whole idea of Planet of the Apes was the reversal, right? The humans lose their ability to talk and can't communicate and thus effectively organize, right? To revolt. So the apes have the upper hand because they have learned to organize and talk, right? Communicate. That's where the division is, right? But in that one with Mark Wahlberg, the humans could talk just like normal. And if that's the case, why did they never organize to throw off the apes? It was just a really weird setup the way it was.
You're saying like the humans lost the ability to talk, right?
Mm-hmm. Or language, at least.
So one of the things I think is interesting is like when we look at ancient languages, we look at them as being sort of primitive, right? We're starting to add hieroglyphics to annotate emotions into our written text just now today in the 21st century. You know what I mean?
Well,
Through what do you call those emojis
yeah.
and that kind of thing, right?
Sure.
Were they less advanced?
I don't think so.
Because doesn't the hieroglyphic language contain context?
Yeah.
As part of the symbology,
Yeah.
that like a T is just a fucking T.
Like for instance, a wick as a hieroglyph in Egypt is a symbol for the god Heka, which is a god of healing. It's also a symbol for light. It's also a symbol for wick.
Yeah.
It also has a phonetic
Heka.
Heka.
Hecate?
Hecate is Finnish, Greek/Finnish.
Okay.
Hecate is. She was the goddess of magic. The Heka god is a goddess of medicine and magic in ancient Egypt, and all the statues of her has hands coming out like they're like this and go up.
Okay.
So they,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, they sort of fancied the villain in the one of the Thor movies after her.
maybe. Yeah. So like if you see her cartouche, for instance, it's the hands and a wick.
Okay.
And that's like her symbol, which is two hieroglyphs that mean her, and of course everything that's bound up with her.
And that's what I mean. Like it sort of captures, like pictorial languages, if you will, sort of capture information, a feeling information that has to just be verbally described
for the culture that knows them.
Yeah, for the culture that knows them, right?
And in ancient times, Egypt was one of the only places who had a lower class citizen population that could read, and that what they could read was the hieroglyphs.
That's what in that book that I read, that Alfred Korzybski book, Science and Sanity. It's the laws of general semantics. Great fucking, like, I highly encourage anybody, if you can find it, get it and read it. It's a great book, college level textbook kind of thing, but it's worth it to chew through it and understand what he's talking about. But one of the things that Alfred Korzybski says in that book is that, like, now I don't know if he's quoting someone or if this is his quote. So, but that's where I saw it. I know that for certain, but was that the entirety of the knowledge of any given society is stored in their language.
Yeah.
So the more words that a language has to describe something,
the deeper the culture
the deeper the culture and the deeper the understanding is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I thought that was really, I was like, that was very fucking profound.
As an example of what you're saying, the reason why the first recorded battle in history was the Battle of Kadesh between Ramses II and the Hittites is because when Ramses came back, he wrote all over the city in hieroglyphs that he went over there and kicked their ass, and that's pretty much what everybody read and believed.
Okay.
And would record, right, in their books and stuff that we would find later and on their actual walls and stuff. But once we did some digging into this, we found out that it was pretty much a draw where they were like, okay, we're done. You know,
good
we're
enough.
just
We'll both go home and declare victory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because neither of our cities got invaded by the other, so everybody wins.
Yes, but for history,
I wonder how much that.
For long history, nobody even knew that the Hittites wins. For all of history, they thought only the Egyptians did until modern-day archaeology revealed that that wasn't the case.
Wow.
So for thousands of years, people thought that the Egyptians won at the Battle of Kadesh. And that's not what happened.
So I get full circle here, I guess, to close up this whole language discussion thing, is I think that because of shit like emojis, and giffies,
well, they say gifs, but
the animated and things
GIF.
of this nature, it's allowing people to convey emotion through the medium of text
and to change the context
big time.
Yeah. One of my favorite context changers is there was an episode of the original series of Star Trek where Spock was kind of freaking out for whatever reasons with emotions and stuff, and he gets up out of a chair where he's kind of contemplatively setting and meditating and to answer a call on the monitor, and when he gets done, he beats the hell out of the monitor and stuff, and now I see that GIF as an expression of people who are having problems with their computers at offices.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of taken on a different meaning.
Yeah.
It expresses something different when you see it from a coworker in your office, for instance, than its original context of an emotional turmoil.
Yeah.
The guy barely holding on, and he's got to beat the hell out of this to release it, or he's going to kill someone. You know what I mean? Like, it's a totally different, maybe a totally different situation, maybe not.
I was thinking about you the other night because I saw, I think it's on Netflix, there's a Leonard Nimoy special. There's a couple documentaries. One his son made about his dad after he died.
Seen that one.
And then there's another one that I think actually was made while Leonard Nimoy may have still been alive, but it was, and then I saw them talking about Igrok Spock, and I was like, I'd never heard of that.
Really?
Yeah, I think I'd seen it like on the bumper stickers maybe and that kind of stuff, but I just didn't. Like, I don't know what the fuck that means. Trekkies, whatever, weirdos.
Right?
Moving on. I got better shit to do. Dude,
out of the way, Trek.
I had this dude I was in the Navy with that was a big Star Trek fan. I won't say his name. I won't out him because people that I was in the military with listen to this. But this dude was hardcore Star Trek-y kind of guy. He actually had like Starfleet uniforms. He spent his uniform, because we get uniform allowances in the military, and you would go buy uniforms with it. Well, he bought a uniform. He bought a Starfleet Next Generation uniform with it. And my supervisor made him go put it on and wear it to the squadron and paraded him around the squadron. And I think he honestly believed that, because my supervisor,
I was going to say, he's probably proud, wasn't he?
My supervisor was like, "Isn't this great? Look how great!" And he was like, and he was like, and didn't even understand that he was this guy. Anyway, I'll move on.
This guy has a litany of examples attached to him.
He was different. He honestly believed. I had a lot of personal experience with him because I was sort of told to help him get his shit together. And one of the things I had to help him with was understanding how to balance a checkbook. Okay, this is an adult tossed into the military. That's why I say not everybody should be allowed to join the military. Not just anybody should, And there are certain guidelines, physical fitness and mental.
Those are the basic guidelines.
But other than that, that still lets a lot of the people that just shouldn't be there, and most of them get weeded out in boot camp, to be honest. But it's a hell of a way to put a dishonorable or administrative discharge on someone's permanent record, because that's how you find out the military ain't for you. you know? But I also understand the whole idea of not leaving people a back door because they'll use it. You want people to see what they can actually accomplish if their back's against the wall, kind of thing. But I had to explain to him how to balance a checkbook. And what I mean by that was he went to the base exchange and thought as long as he had checks in his checkbook, this is back in the 90s, he thought as long as he had checks in his checkbook, he had money. Like, it's like he thought he thought checks were like a credit card with like an unlimited balance. So he went to the base exchange, man, and just started buying TVs, like keeping it. It was all in his barracks. He had to take a bunch of the shit back, but all those bounced.
Wow.
Like they weren't going to find him. It's like, it's fucking right there. It's like, it's right up the street, man. Like, they're going to find you, Wow. But yeah, I had to explain to him, this is how you take a deposit, and when you write a check, you come over here and you write the number down, and you got to subtract the amount. Like, I had to explain it to him that, no, man, just because you have checks doesn't mean you have money.
Yeah, you got to keep track of your shit. You can't just go crazy.
It was weird. Like, anyway.
That's weird.
But he could do like 7-digit long division in his head. Like, I don't know. It's people are different, man.
Yeah.
So anyway, alarms have sounded as locals fear the infection might spread following the bizarre incident reported at the Meerkat be funny. Medical College, Meerut, Uttar Pradesh. It's in India, folks. A group of monkeys ran away with coronavirus test samples after attacking a lab technician, it is reported. You saw the video, obviously, of the monkey on the motorcycle trying to kidnap a little girl. I don't even bring it up. It's like been on Facebook and shit.
I didn't know. I didn't see
monkeys, and they're like entering the Stone Age, right? They're fucking
Yes.
they're fishing with
Yes.
spear fishing because they're
And more
copying
importantly,
the
they're teaching their young how to do this. They're passing down their literal culture.
That's insane, right? That's yeek.
I love it.
Well, it's neat that we get to kind of see it. It also gives us more of an insight into our own animalistic behaviors. I think it should to anybody that gives a fuck. A technician was carrying test samples of 3 suspected COVID-19 patients.
We don't know now.
When the bizarre incident is believed to have happened in India, but the monkeys reportedly snatched the specimens and fled from the medical college on Friday. The samples had not yet been tested, Times Now reports. Oh, so we weren't sure that they were COVID. Still, they took off a blood sample.
Yeah, right. Like it could be.
Locals film what they say is one of the monkeys sat in a tree chewing one of the sample collection kits.
Nice.
Maybe they were low in iron.
Yes.
Fears are mounting about the virus spreading amid reports that the monkeys are carrying the samples around nearby residential areas.
They're like, ah.
How classic would that be? You know,
that is a third world problem, isn't it?
No one counted on the monkeys being the ones that were going to start the whole
virus epidemic over again.
Yeah, the whole zombie thing, right? Because that's what.
Yeah, but it would be something like that. Yeah, man, just
fucking monkeys, dude.
Yeah, just monkeying around, and don't give those Stone Age monkeys any DNA.
You ever heard of Humanzy? I heard Rogan talking about this the other day, but I have this former family. I don't know how you say that. He's a friend of mine that was hung up on this Humanzy. Have you ever heard of this thing? You can Google it.
No.
Humanzy. It's a thing. Like,
I mean, I don't even know what you're talking about. So, yeah, it's a thing.
We're talking about fucking monkeys, man.
Oh, okay.
Instead of chimpanzee, it was humanzy.
So is he a hybrid of some kind?
Yeah, it was. Okay. It was believed that it was way back in like when
From Russia.
No, it's like when black and white photos were like a thing, and this thing was basically it was like a hairless monkey that liked to walk upright or something, and it had like freakish human features.
Okay.
None of these are it. None of these. Maybe it was all bullshit, man. I don't know. None of these are it, though. I'm taking us down a wormhole. Let's get off this. Anyway, we don't need to do that.
What? Maybe find a midget priest in there.
I can't do that. We were said.
Okay.
Oh, you're hung up. We've been talking.
You're hung up. You're hung up, dude. Get off the midget priest.
Little people clergy.
It just they don't see it together. I don't think that the seminary school would allow a midget to.
Is that a thing? Is that like a form of discrimination that the?
Well, I don't think they would allow them to be a vessel of God because I think they have to project a certain amount of power. Of the Holy Spirit in Christ.
Is that right?
As a priest.
Why aren't all priests like fucking jacked and yoked and shit?
Well, I don't mean physical power. I mean, but they can't be diminutive is what I think. I don't know if that's true, but I'm curious to find out.
I met a lot of priests and none of them intimidated me.
None of them were short either.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, how would you do an exorcist if you were a little
I don't think that that's a fucking required qualification to be in the seminary, though, man. Like, I don't. I know you're like, there's no studies. We've looked. I can't find anything.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm derailing you down the.
No, it's an interesting topic. I've just been afraid to talk about it because I never knew where the fuck it was going to go with you. But he's got this theory like that there are no
midget priests,
little people priests.
No,
I think
little people.
I think it's the way you're supposed to.
Okay.
Say that.
Sure. I mean, dwarves included because that's a different thing, right?
I don't know enough about it, but I did look up and try to do some searches on little people and the Catholic priesthood, and you might be onto something here. Okay, I just can't find anything.
It's time for a white
it.
page, isn't it? It's time for me to do a report.
I think you should do a study and then write a paper, and we can talk about it because I
get
can't
it published.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right user groups. Maybe you folks out there can help him get over this fascination with there not being.
What I really need is a midget priest that understands the binary language of moisture evaporators. Evaporators. My first job was programming binary load lifters, which is similar to evaporators in most respects. Do you speak Banshee? Of course I do. It's like a second language to me. All right.
And do you perform exorcism?
Right. Yeah, of course I do.
It's like a second language to me.
It's like an automated routine.
Okay, so this...
Look, we just combined little people, religion, exorcism, and Star Wars.
No, you did. I'm just here for the ride.
Okay. Should have taken my psilocybin.
Speaking of psilocybin, first of its kind study hints at how psilocybin works in the brain to dissolve the ego. This is from Science Alert.
I wonder why my super ego was so big.
Prior to Tom O'Neill's book,
yes,
I was pretty like, because I've heard all the stories. Oh, especially mushrooms, they're legalizing it in Denver or wherever, Boulder, Colorado or something. And you're like, oh, they're, it's kind of harmless, this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, okay, maybe they got this acid thing wrong, like they got the marijuana thing wrong. Then I fucking read Tom O'Neill's book, and I don't know if people should be fucking around with this shit.
Oh,
man.
no, you shouldn't be fucking around with it. You should certainly have trepidation about your journeys.
And I'm a little concerned with it being readily available like alcohol. And this is funny because I'm very much a civil libertarian.
Sure. But this is a little worrisome. Huh?
But after reading that book, and it's like how it was used to manipulate people into, and see the way that it does shit, like this is probably, we're going to discuss a positive effect of all of it, right? In the sense that how it dissolves your ego and stuff. But I think it's sort of like in the wrong hands can also be used as a way to sort of rewire people's programming.
I think if people weren't aware that that was going on,
it could really
mess you up, right?
Yeah.
If you take it yourself and you're dosing yourself, you know what's happening.
Well, everybody in the Manson family knew they were taking LSD,
and that's fine, and they were probably fine when they were doing that, but.
They just went and murdered a bunch of people.
As fine as they were before they started taking it.
Of course, I shouldn't say that because that's being unfair to LSD. And the way that Tom wrote the book was that it was LSD like for 2 years, like just dumping it in the tanker truckload into this community. And then they, bam, fucking hit him with amphetamines, like meth. Amphetamines.
They'll just jack you up.
And then they went fucking crazy. And there was like
so they were doing a cocktail
violence. Well, that's what the according to what he's claiming in his book and the documentation points to is that all of this was very much orchestrated by certain entities inside of the Central Intelligence Agency and stuff to foment unrest among what they believed were factions inside America that were anti-American. But they had passed judgment on these groups, judge, jury, and executioner, and were doing all this stuff covertly, right? And what's funny is, you read Tom O'Neill's book and then fucking look out the window. And you're like, wait a minute. There's a lot of this shit that looks really familiar, Just saying.
There is no real brainwashing or programming without a cocktail of drugs.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can't deprogram anyone or brainwash anyone.
Well, I think that, but they were all going to the Haight-Ashbury Family Medical Clinic.
Yeah, right.
And we're getting psychological treatments and stuff from psychologists.
Yeah, like a cocktail of synthetic drugs and non-synthetics is probably not
knows, good. Dude. It's spooky. What if you go through
what your government might do to you?
No. What is documented that they have done?
Who, the government?
Yeah. That's the spooky part. Like, and it's like oh, well, we shut these programs down. Yeah, like fucking 6 years ago. Like 6 years ago.
Yeah, that's not, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, from the article, the psychedelic experience can be rough on a person's ego. Those who experiment with magic mushrooms and LSD often describe the dissolution of the self, otherwise known as ego death, ego loss, or ego disintegration.
All things being fair, I have done psilocybin shrooms 4 times and LSD twice.
Okay.
Or whatever that's worth.
How do you feel about that?
I feel fantastic about
okay,
it.
I'm just...
I would do the psilocybin mushrooms again. I wouldn't do the LSD, but that's because it's stored in strychnine.
It's a poison.
So, I mean, just aside from taking a poison, I would do the natural psilocybin.
And the other thing that has always turned me off, I mean, prior to reading Tom O'Neill's book, which pretty much is like, no, I'm not touching this shit ever, but is the fucking amount of time that you got to commit to this thing. Like, it's an event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a journey. It's a trip.
Yeah. It's not something you just do, and then 2 hours later, you're running
and you don't just shake it off after 2 hours. You don't just say, okay, I'm going to sober up. I just got to slam some coffee. No. You're going to be held hostage for a good 10 to 12 hours. You just better be prepared for that. So I go take a drive.
That's a little spooky. For some, the experience is life-changing. For others, it's downright terrifying. Yet, despite anecdote after anecdote of good trips and bad trips, no one really knows what these drugs actually do to our perception of self. I think it's probably because it's different for everybody. Yeah. The human brain's cortex is where the roots of all self-awareness are thought to lie, and growing evidence has shown that neurotransmitters, glutamate, is elevated in this region when someone is tripping.
Yeah, so, I mean...
Can you translate that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a real simple sense, if you got a strong mind and a good sense of yourself, you'll be fine. If you're
schizophrenic or have...
Yeah, which is a weak mind. A schizophrenic would be weak. Or if you have really bad problems in your life, like for real bad problems, you shouldn't be fucking around with
Shouldn't be fucking around with stuff
Not for either one of those things. But if you... and I do encourage you to be strong of mind. I don't just mean... the average strong of mind. I mean, you should be pretty intellectual and self-aware.
Because I hear all the time about like fucking college professors and shit in the 60s that were like taking heroic amounts of this shit, and like going and communing with the aliens and stuff. So, and a lot of them lived well into their 80s, 90s and stuff. I think Timothy Leary was in his 70s, wasn't he? 70s, 80s when he died.
Couldn't say, but...
He's one of those people that was like huge, one of the early psychonauts, I think is what they called them, right?
Psychonauts. And some of the first times that this ever happened was like in ancient times when ergot, which is a fungus formed on wet wheat.
Yeah, people would start tripping balls. Yeah.
So, again, it really helps if you know it's going to happen. If you don't know it's going to happen, there's probably going to be issues. You're going to have a different story at the end of the day.
But up until now, we've only had observational evidence. Now, for the first time, researchers have looked directly into the... Did I read this already? Glutamate activity in the brain. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled experiment, neuroscientists carefully analyzed what happens to glutamate levels in a person's ego when taking psilocybin, the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. Using magnetic resonance imaging to monitor the brains of 60 healthy volunteers...
I am healthy.
I'm healthy. Fuck me up.
Yeah.
The team found... right. I'm good and healthy now. Fuck me up.
Hit me hard.
The team found significant changes in activity in both the cortex and the hippocampus in those taking psilocybin. Glutamate is the most common neurotransmitter in the brain, and it's known to be critical for fast signaling and information, especially in the cortex and hippocampus, the latter of which is thought to play a role in self-esteem. So it's like nitrous for your fucking brain.
Well, it's gonna.
No wonder people
not
do
nitrous.
this.
The opposite of that, right?
No,
like
it says
takes away your ego.
It speeds up your neurotransmitters.
I see. I got you.
So it like
those particular ones.
It like speeds your brain up.
Yeah.
Like or that part of your brain. It also looks like psychedelics have a way of tapping into this system. Interestingly enough, in the new clinical study, these two regions of the brain had quite different glutamate response to psilocybin. While the authors found higher levels of glutamate in the prefrontal cortex during a trip, they actually found lower levels of glutamate in the hippocampus. Interesting. I don't know what any of that means.
I think the hippocampus, isn't that where like your emotions and fight or flight comes from?
Sounds good to me.
And then, of course,
I thought that was called the feels.
Yeah. The prefrontal cortex is definitely where the higher order brain functions,
like
logic
and reason.
and all that. Yeah. So I think it's like saying that it's basically a reversal, right? So your ego would be in the higher function, right?
Yes, because I'm smart and I understand things, and you know nothing.
To dissolve that,
it dissolves that. So turns you back to lizard brain.
It just makes you realize that you're one with everything, that you're not separate. Ego comes from believing that you don't have a connection with things, that you're better or separate from things, right? Because you're you.
Right.
But if you take that away, what you end up with is that you realize that's not really the case.
Right.
You realize you're a part of everything, and everything is just as alive as you are, and has every right to exist or die as you do. And I guess in one way, it's the difference between having something terrible happen to you and going outside and looking up at the night sky and screaming in frustration at a god, and realizing the difference, and realizing that yes, this is still happening to you, but there is no God, meaning this isn't personal. You're a part of everything, and this is just happening. It's not like a God is neglecting you or had it in for you. It's not personal. You're in this chain, and sometimes good things happen in the chain, and sometimes bad things happen. But if you can get a grip on knowing that your ego is a separate thing from that, then you can process these bad things that happen to you with no explanation attached to the bad thing. Like, why did I break up with the person I was with or something? You know, like, what's the cause? Like, there may not be a cause. It may not be.
It just is.
Yeah. It may not be destined or ordained. But people feel that way, right? When bad things happen, they look for a reason. There's got to be a reason this happened. Same thing with the economy, right? Like, people oftentimes blame good economies and on the things that's going on, but it could just be that they lived in a time where they were lucky that there was nothing bad happening, and it really wasn't what was happening in the economy. It just happened to be a good economy. They didn't really make it good; just nothing bad was going on.
I heard the greatest thing today. It said that the stock market, like the stock ticker, stock market, is a graphical representation that shows us how rich people feel.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah. Yeah.
That's wow. Anyway. Okay. So, what's more, this may have something to do with whether a person has a good experience with their ego or a bad one. Makes sense. Analysis indicated that region-dependent alterations in glutamate were also correlated with different dimensions of ego dissolution. The authors write, whereas changes in glutamate or cortical glutamate were found to be the strongest predictor of a negatively experienced ego dissolution, changes in hippocampal glutamate were found to be the strongest predictor of positively experienced ego dissolution. Yeesh.
Yeah.
So they can take blood tests as you're tripping and tell whether it's good or not.
Probably they were looking at that MRI.
It's like, how do you stop? You still can't stop it.
But isn't it nice to know there's something that you could do to yourself that could pretty much 50-50 be a good or a bad thing? Like, except that you would know, right?
No, I understand that, but there's a lot of things you can do to yourself that could be a good or bad thing.
Yeah, but a lot of times those good and bad things are mitigated by the things you might do to make them good or bad, right?
Right.
The precautions you may or may not take, or the direction you may go. But this is like the red pill, the blue pill, right? You take it and you're not really sure,
right,
regardless of what you've done before you've taken it.
Where the first time
the first time I ever tripped, I had all of this elaborate stuff that I had planned out. Like, I even recorded a message for myself to go off on a timer and hid it behind the couch,
thinking that
it would stimulate a catalyst that would cause something to happen that would be enlightening.
Okay.
Like I had like 4 or 5 things set up at the house, and I was absolutely going to stay at the house for the first time and shit, you know. And then all of a sudden, after I started tripping, I'm like, I'm going to go to Kroger's and get ice cream. My wife was like, no, you're not. I'm like, oh, yes, I am, because you better not leave this house. I called her from Kroger's. Hey, man, it was fine getting down here. Everything's good.
Yeah.
It's great. You should come down. She said, what are you laughing at? I'm like, I think everyone's staring at me. You know, because I don't get paranoid, right? It was just funny. I think it was that they weren't, though. But at any rate, like, yeah, I mean, I ended up leaving the house, and none of that mattered, because that's all like really frontal lobe stuff, right? All those experiments and things that you think you're going to do, or you're going to hallucinate or whatever. And it just doesn't go that way.
Yeah.
It's just going to be whatever it's going to be. I've had healing situations occur.
Yes.
Just once.
I've heard a lot about that too, where people have had their egos destroyed, and it's like reset them, and they fucking end up being much happier, much healthier, sort of calmer people.
Less anxiety. Yeah.
And that's so, and I believe all of that, like, but
which is why I was telling you that earlier. Like, I need, over time, you're gonna, for lack of a better analogy, like you said, you're gonna pick up stones in your life. Things are gonna happen, and you're gonna try to do things and make a difference in your life. You're gonna pull these stones that's gonna weigh you down, and at some point, you really do need a purge, because even if you're sailing pretty smooth, you probably still have some baggage that accumulates, and it just cleans that out, man.
Yeah,
like, it just sets that free, cleans it out
for most people.
For most people, yeah.
Okay, but it's not something to go tripping, no pun intended, tripping into lightly either, right?
No, I wouldn't say so. I think you need to be the right kind of person for it, right? I don't think that young kids should do it. I don't think that teenagers should do it. I don't think you should do it until your brain's fully developed, like after 30 or something.
Anything like that. I think it's at least 21, right?
Whenever it is, I think you should wait. I didn't do any of this stuff until after then. You know, I didn't, when I was a teenager and a young adult in my early 20s, I didn't do nothing.
Right.
I didn't even drink. So all of that got developed fine. But I went through my whole college of 4 years and getting a bachelor's degree and a minor in philosophy, totally like,
no problem.
Smoking, weed. So,
well, look, I think that's over with, man. That sort of stereotype about that. There's too many states where everybody, like tons of people are parts of these society, professionals, bankers, the whole 9 yards, are just getting fucking blazed up every day, and the wheels did not fall off of the wagon of society in any way, shape, or form, right? So that stereotype's sort of falling apart anyway, that it somehow makes you lazy or unproductive. If you're a productive person, you're still productive. If you were an unproductive person before you smoked pot, you're still an unproductive person after you smoke pot. Like, I don't think it makes you do anything per se, All right, what else we got here? Have we beat this one to death, you think? Okay, so psilocybin kills ego through glutamate.
Maybe that last paragraph.
Practically, we still don't really understand how this activity in the brain is linked to our ego. See?
Yeah. We don't know how it's linked. We just see lights going on.
But here's some shit. Big words giveth, and the little words taketh away. Still, it's been suggested that psychedelics decouple regions of the brain. So factual, that's what that says. Factual or factual or autobiographical. How fucking high am I or what?
Factual or autobiographical. Information is momentarily separated from a sense of personal identity.
I can't spit that word out. I wanted to say fractal.
Fractal.
Because I'm thinking psychedelics, and my brain keeps telling me that's got to be fractal. And I'm like, that's not fractal. It's
especially
factual.
With that weird face thing below it that's just distracting. Okay, anyway, we did that paragraph.
Maybe I should be doing fucking mushrooms. Anyway,
we're not getting any further away from this.
Okay, so ZME Science says that cannabis was used for religious rites in Israel, archaeologists find.
Says them.
I'd heard this, and I think you can kind of Google that they used it in the anointing oils, but I don't know if that's like a urban myth or something somebody made up or whatever. But
it's a possibility, and and I don't know if it's a myth. It's a actual myth from real time, right? So there's been indications that the oil that was used on the feet of Jesus was hemp oil. There's been
the oil they used to go into the temple.
That they put themselves on. Yeah,
I heard that was
Yes.
like they would shave. Tell me how if you've heard any of this or how if I'm wrong. Okay,
yeah, and they put the oil on them.
They would like shave themselves completely bare and then pour this fucking oil on themselves from head to toe that was infused with THC.
Yeah, a lot of times.
And then they'd go into the temple, and then they would see God.
Yes, yeah, a lot of times they would use a combination of, for whatever reason, frankincense and THC, cannabis. But they've never actually found evidence, like a myth in that we've seen it written about. We've heard people
That's
talk
what I
about
heard. It was written about, but it never had like a jar or
right,
anything
that they found residue in or any of that kind of thing. But cannabis, frankincense, and a lot of the times ochre would be used in these kind of ritualistic see God experiments and stuff.
And they did.
Yes. Well, that's what, they would have told you that whether they did or not.
Right.
That is their job to come back out and be like, yes.
That's all shit.
It's real, and we got to do...
I'm important, and I got to tell you what to
Right. They're never going to say no, but presumably, they may not have. What if they just got high and enjoyed it, but didn't see God, but came out and was like,
I think it's funny, like, how everybody's always called to be a champion for God or always called to be... How come no one's ever called to just... You probably should just stay quiet.
The last time I had a
Like,
flat tire, I called you.
No, but you get what I'm like. Every time someone says, I've spoken to God and God has called me, God's always calling them to greatness or grandeur.
Yes,
He's always calling them, and God never calls anybody and says, you should probably just stay home.
Yeah.
The world's all right without you.
There's a long history of that, though. I mean, way back in the Sumerian times was the first time that we found art that depicted the king of the city-states to be as tall and as large in the picture as the deities were that were in the same pictures.
Oh, heresy. Huh?
Well, if not heresy, a direct vassal of the deity.
Oh, like the Merovingian, what do they call the whole King Arthur? Isn't it the Merovingians?
Merovingi. Yeah, I mean,
like
like that.
God somehow.
Yeah,
right.
But in this case, this is before God, right? This is the Sumerians, which is even before Yahweh, right?
Yeah.
So, but just the idea that the leader is also the de facto head priest,
right?
Is basically that concept came way early.
We call that a theocracy, right?
It is if he literally is a priest, but in many cases they were like warrior priests. They were essentially the leaders ordained by the gods, and then there was a priest class, right? But there were theocracies where those would blend together, but they were a bit more rare. But just the idea that the leader is chosen by God, and of course the first rules that were ever set down, like the Cyrus cylinder, for instance, and which is a Babylonian artifact, those were always told that they came from the gods. Like these 10 commandments or the cylinder of rules or these things that we got to do, they come from the gods.
Fiery finger of fucking God, no less, right?
In some cases, yeah. But interpreted by either the priesthood and or the ruler.
Yeah.
But that was...
That's what I mean. Everybody's always called to grandeur. I'm to lead you.
Yes.
And I'm to, everybody can't be the fucking leader, man. Someone's got to be followers, right? Someone's got to be called. But anyway, just throwing that out there. Okay. It's not only about discovering temples.
Midgets can't be.
And ancient civilization. You're going to get me in so much trouble. Archaeologists can sometimes discover unexpected. That's one word.
Sure.
I don't think that's supposed to be one word.
I'm going to read that. Discover run expected.
Yeah, discover unexpected surprises such as the use of cannabis in ancient Israel.
Surprises. Holy crap.
Ta-da! It seems that the priests in ancient Israel sometimes used marijuana in rituals. It's the first evidence of the practice being done in the early history of Judaism, the holy herb. A group of archaeologists working on a 2,007-year-old altar in a desert shrine in Israel analyzed charred residues and found an interesting thing: cannabis. There's your physical proof now, right?
Yes, yeah.
You know, so now they did like some sort of mass spectral analysis of it.
More than likely. Yeah.
Mass spectrometer. The traces of weed were found on one of the altars of the temple in Tel Arad in the Negev Desert in Israel. I hope I'm saying that all right. The substance was probably burned on purpose to get worshipers high on the psychoactive compounds the researchers found. Why wouldn't they? If it worked to talk to God in the temple,
well,
and you wanted to convince everybody that you had talked to God, then you would just give them the same sort of enlightening, warm experience, right? I mean,
consider episodes 3 and 4 that we did, which was all about
trippy
proto,
gods, and the stoned ape theory.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So why, it wouldn't be surprising that these early religions still have vestiges of using these substances, and would by this time have specific ways in which they would know how to use them.
Right.
Like they would be buying it specifically for this purpose, doing, like, for instance, back before this, they were maybe getting the plants and burning the plants, right? But by this point, they've probably found a way to distill it and make it portable, and
right,
and that you could buy it, like with frankincense, right?
Yeah,
like they should by this point in time. So it's actually become quite integrated into the ritualistic part of the religion. And it's also worth noting that a lot of this comes from the ancient Greeks, where the word ecstasy means to be outside of yourself.
Yeah.
In like a spirit form. So this is one of those things like wine or any substance really that's going to help you get into that
like headspace or whatever.
Yeah.
In fact, the archaeologists strongly did I read that? Presumably the goal is to induce empower a religious ritual. In fact, the archaeologists strongly suspect that cannabis played a role in the rituals done at the Temple of Jerusalem. This is because the shrine at Arad was part of a fortress that kept safe one of the frontiers of the kingdom of Judah. At the same time, the Babylonians conquered Jerusalem. Quote, we know from all around the ancient Near East and around the world that many cultures used hallucinogenic materials and ingredients in order to get into some kind of religious ecstasy. Woo! Your word. Said lead author Aaron Ari. We never thought about Judah taking part in these cultic practices.
Now, that's the worst thing for a guy to say. We never thought about them. Why wouldn't you think about them when you just said it was found all along this area, right? And why would you call them cultic practices unless you're literally trying to set aside the idea that the Judaic religion is somehow more authentic and widespread than any other culture, religion that would have used these same things, right? Like cultic
or no less anyway.
Right, yeah. It's a weird way to phrase that.
Yeah.
Like man, we didn't really want it to be this way, but it looks like it looks like we're we found it. Sorry.
Here we are. The Jews were potheads.
I know, right?
What the fuck?
Everybody there's always some problem with the Jews. Now we're potheads.
Poor people. Now everyone's going to think Jews are potheads. Inside Arad, the researchers found. I'm going to go with that. The researchers found in the past a masaba.
Masaba.
Okay.
Masaba is an Arabic word that means bench, and it's what eventually the pyramids were made out of. Masabas were like telephone booth sort of size. I mean, even that's archaic now, right? But and they would stack them beside each other, and then they started stacking them like this, and then the first step pyramids were eventually developed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, mastabas.
It says it's a worked standing stone associated with ancient Levantan cultic activities and likely represented the presence of the deity in the shrine. On the steps leading to it were 2 altars that had been buried, which helped preserve the remains of burnt offerings. Yeah, that was another thing. Like, they would bury temples. Probably during sieges or when they thought that they were going to get overran, they would bury the temple.
Especially in this area, because there were really large either city-states that would sometimes cooperate or large kingdoms or nations, if you will, that would interpose their will upon these smaller nations.
Right.
Like the Judaic nation was a group of people who left Babylon and separated themselves from Babylon and didn't want any more ties. And at one point, the Babylonians wanted them back and actively went and laid siege. That was like the first siege when the Babylonians sieged Jerusalem, and the second siege was when the Romans did, but much later.
I know.
But the point is that the Jewish people lived in an area where Babylon was a threat, and there was even smaller kingdoms like the Canaanites and stuff that were also in their area that had to contend with. So they might very well bury these things just to cover up their religious practices and what they did. See, when they first came over from Babylon, they had Yahweh and Yeshua, which was his consort. So there was a male and a female. And then later on, they changed it, got rid of the female, kept Yahweh, and that became God. And then later that begot the
monotheism,
yeah.
Oh.
Well, the monotheism was when Akhenaten went out into the desert and told all the other priests that their gods didn't matter anymore.
Well, they got rid of his ass.
They did.
Yeah,
and
they
struck
did.
his name off of everything.
And his ass. Yeah, you're done.
Yep. No duat for you. Egyptian heaven, the duat.
I know, yeah, right. Yeah. The organic remains in the altars had already been analyzed in 1960, and the results were inconclusive. I bet they weren't. I bet they didn't.
That's a good point, man.
Shit, really? Pot?
Yeah.
It's the 60s? You're sure?
Yeah,
we're
we
not
ain't telling
releasing
nobody
this.
nothing.
But the experts had assumed that the altars were used to burn some type of incense. Now, Ari and a group of archaeologists applied more modern techniques and found that most of the substance in case was frankincense.
Yeah, they would use that a lot of times with cannabis for reasons I don't know.
Says this was the first time frankincense was identified in the Levant, the geographical area in the eastern Mediterranean region of Western Asia that also hosts Israel. But that wasn't the only surprise. On the smaller altar, 40 centimeters high, the team found rests of tetrahydrocannabinol, or THC, cannabidiol, CBD, and cannabinol, CBN. Two substances that are also found in cannabis. So what I think is funny, and as I was trying to chew through this, the thought that was going through my mind was they have this big tall thing that they burn shit on, and in front of it they had a smaller thing that they burn shit on, so it looks like a bong.
And they're just like...
The holy bong, right? Yeah. The analysis of the chemicals in the residue showed that the frankincense and cannabis were mixed in with animal fat and dung.
Yes, that burns pretty hot, and you got to get,
slow,
cannabis
right?
Hot. And slow, yeah. But you got to get it hot to release the psychotropic substances in it, right? At a certain temperature.
I guess.
Well, because of vaporizers and stuff, got settings on them depending on what.
That's true. Temperature, right? Yeah. Yep. The researchers believe that the fat could have helped to achieve the needed temperature for the frankincense to release its aroma. Meanwhile, the dung probably helped to burn the cannabis at a lower temperature so that the soda activated psychoactive compounds.
Tasty.
There's no evidence that the marijuana was grown in the Levant during the Iron Age, according to the researchers, which suggest, of course it was. It grows like what? Fucking natively on 80% of the surface of the planet.
Yeah, but they're not going to admit to it till they find something that for sure said that it was.
They find fucking like, Tommy Chong, fucking Jewish farmer.
Or just maybe cannabis seeds, stored someplace where people were cultivating them.
Which suggested it had to be imported and implied larger costs. That's also the case of the frankincense collected from Boswellia.
Oh,
I don't know,
Boswellia
trees and brought in from southern Arabia.
So yeah, see, there was like a market,
like trade routes
to port
and shit,
it,
right? Yeah, makes sense. I mean,
so imagine how long cannabis has been ported for profit around the world, like since ancient times.
Well, the founders used it too. The founding fathers of America used it and smoked it too. Albert Einstein was rumored to have used a mixture of marijuana and tobacco when he would do his thought experiments and shit. Quote, if they just wanted to make the temple smell nice, they could have burned some sage, which grows in the area of Jerusalem, Ari said. Importing cannabis and frankincense was a big investment that could not be made by some isolated groups of nomads. It required backing from a powerful state entity. So that's what, okay, I don't want to sign up. No, thanks. Okay. So that's why they're saying that it was like this was a systemic thing, because it wouldn't have come from the area. It would have had to be imported, which means it was done like on purpose.
Yeah. And was like a whole, like it was a thing. Like, hey, we need to buy some more of this, just like you would anything else.
It goes, I like how it says, though, the use of cannabis in Israel is now illegal, but has been decriminalized partially.
As we realize what's actually happening.
Home use and possession of up to 15 grams and below are not enforced by the authorities. Its use is also allowed for some specified medical purposes. Israel is now seen as a global leader in medical cannabis research and innovation. Yeah, it's true. Like a lot of the articles I used to see on it curing everything from the gout to fucking gingivitis was like it was always coming out of Israel.
Yeah. They're doing amazing things there. Weren't they also the people that teleported an entangled particle the longest distance or something that we read about?
World's changing.
They're doing amazing things.
I know. So speaking of Israel, Jews anyway.
Qumran.
Oh yeah, because these people wouldn't have been Jews. These people would have been the Gnostics,
the
right?
Essenes, yeah.
The
Essenes, which were a Gnostic branch that had left Jerusalem due to arguing with the Sadducees and Pharisees there about how things should be to really be Jewish.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how you're to be Jewish. This is how you're being Jewish. And so they left.
So they were like the Amish of the Jews kind of thing?
In a sense, yeah. They went to isolate themselves. They went way far away to these caves in a place called Qumran, and they had like an entry scroll, like you had to subscribe to a certain monastic lifestyle to be a part of what they did. And they basically made a lot of copies of Scripture and had some commentary. The Dead Sea Scrolls was a lot of that commentary, a part of which was like the War Scroll, which was this apocalyptic scroll that told about the war between light and darkness and had two messianic figures. It had David and Jesus that were fighting on one side. They had things, just like with Protestant churches today, there's little variations. At that time, the Jewish community was a thriving community where they were constantly discussing the interpretations out of the Torah and studying it, right? Because when you're 12 and you have your bar mitzvah, the rest of your life you're supposed to dedicate to studying the Torah.
Right.
And this was like a golden age for them at this time, and so the discussions were rife about, so it was kind of fragmented, as it would be. Says scientists decode the Dead Sea Scrolls puzzle with DNA fingerprints. This comes from No Ridge Science Report. It's like a Yeti fingerprint. Where did you guys get a pet Yeti?
Holy shit. Who guessed Bigfoot? The collection of more than 25,000 fragments of ancient manuscripts known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is now covered by an ad, include, among other ancient texts, the oldest copies of books of the Hebrew Bible. Yep. I got to get an ad box.
Copies of that.
But finding a way to piece them all together in order to understand their meaning has remained an incredibly difficult puzzle, especially given most of the pieces were weren't excavated in an orderly fashion. No, they kind of came out in fistfuls.
They did, yeah, and a lot of the locals had went and taken them and then sold them to researchers and stuff,
and
and
collect them all back together. They're still getting pieces of
a lot of them were burnt.
Oh, for fuel and like start fires and stuff. Now researchers are reporting in the journal Cell have used an intriguing clue to help in the effort. DNA fingerprints lifted from the animal skins on which the texts were written. The discovery of the 2,000-year-old Dead Sea Scrolls is one of the most important archaeological discoveries ever made, says Oded Rachavi of Tel Aviv University in Israel. Ever made?
Discoveries ever made?
Yeah, you think the Dead Sea Scrolls is one of the greatest archaeological discoveries ever made?
One of them, yeah. Absolutely.
Why is it bigger than like the Epics of Gilgamesh, which predate, or the?
So they're saying one of the biggest. They're not saying it's bigger than anything else. They're saying it ranks right up there.
Oh, and as far as a cultural significance,
yeah,
it's very big. Yeah, I guess I understand where
it was just one of those things where we stumbled upon it and we found out so much more about Gnostic religions. We found letters, which is what gave us the understanding that all of this conversation and dissent was happening. Yeah. So we learned so much about the ancient culture of the Israelites that it's a huge deal, right? And we're still mining it, right? Just like with Göbekli Tepe, the Potbelly Hill and what they're finding, and they're still finding things out. And what was the other one you mentioned?
I mentioned Göbekli Tepe,
that's Potbelly Hill.
Yeah.
But you said another one too. I can't remember now what it was, but a big archaeological discovery. I can't remember. Yeah, anyway.
I don't remember either.
Another big one was the Nag Mahal Library, which was found when a camel broke its foot in a hole.
Right.
Just like old Potbelly Hill was found when a farmer was plowing his field and he tried to get a stone out. Turned out it was an ancient temple. It took a lot longer than he thought.
Yeah, and there was a lot more of them.
Yeah, and the horse was like, I can't move it.
Yeah, this ain't happening. Yeah, because we were talking about that earlier about how these ancient cultures, when the cities, they would bury shit, and I wonder how many now with the LiDAR and all that, we talk about this all the time. They're finding shit, all over the damn place.
Satellite archaeology, underwater archaeology, LiDAR.
Because we thought because of the absence of. When we think about Indiana Jones movies, like the sort of mystique that goes along with that, they go into these temples that are hidden in jungles, and no one has seen them in thousands and thousands.
They have to get through traps and tricks,
and then it's like this. They're like these real isolated things. It turns out like South America just fucking covered.
Yeah, with exactly that,
and highways and roadways. Like they had constructed roadways, the whole 9 yards. And so now in the deserts of the Middle East, there's like fucking pyramids everywhere. There are like tons of them. They don't even have enough time to go and excavate them all. There's so many of them. That's pretty wild, man. It is. Kind of shows that man was way more
prolific, connected, and intelligent, and able than we give him credit for in an afterthought for thinking of ancient people. Yeah.
Yeah, we always think of them sort of. Them stupid fuckers were so primitive,
Well, I think a lot of people forget this aspect, right? Like this job that I've been working, I've been working there a little over a year, right? And there's a certain time last year when for maybe roughly a month, the shadows of the stuff on the wall, on the window, would perfectly hit this chair. And it would cast a shadow of the name of where I work at.
Oh, it was like the letters were shadow boxed out kind of thing?
Yeah, it just looked like it was printed on the back of the chair. It just fit perfectly, right? But then over time, that went away. So a few days ago, I was noticing that it was coming back because that chair hasn't moved, right? And I'm like, okay, that's going to happen because I took a picture of it last time. And I thought, well, I'll take a picture of it again, right? Now imagine if you didn't have any computers or internet or anything, right? And you live in ancient times. All you got is stories and time on your hand and work, right? And you're gonna notice more things happening in the sky. You're gonna see more things in certain places that you're gonna remember year after the year. You're gonna base things. I mean, almost all of the proto-religions also have that component of following the rhythmic cycle of the equinoxes, right? And there's so much birth, death, rebirth that's woven into some of these pagan religions for this reason. And it's because everybody knew. Like, one of the things that they talk about when Christianity first started sweeping Rome was that you could kind of jump on board this ride that had this one book, this one temple, and this one place, and this one God. It was very specific, right? There was no question what you needed to do if you joined up with this religion, as opposed to what was going on everywhere else, which is paganism, with everybody on a different
shit tons
thing.
of gods,
right?
like all
and all different, But really,
pantheons,
that's not the case. Really, the case was that because of the pulses of the equinox, they actually did a lot of similar things, even if they did them in different ways and different pantheons,
right? Because
on those same times,
because they were all sort of derivative of the same thing.
Yes,
is what you're getting at.
Which is why today people bitch about Christmas being a pagan holiday or Easter being a pagan holiday, because they co-opted those same time periods and just moved the tradition and religion over. They reinvented their myths, if you will, like we've talked about before.
Kept the date and tweaked the meaning or changed the meaning. Is sort of what.
Yeah. The tradition and the ritual is the same. The reason why you're doing it and exactly what you're doing is changed.
It's fucked up, man. Because, Okay, so, however, it poses two major challenges. First, most of them were not found intact, but rather disintegrated into thousands of fragments, which had to be sorted and pieced together with no prior knowledge on how many pieces have been lost forever, or in the case of non-biblical compositions, how the original text should read.
Yes, and there is a big fight between Orthodox Jewish people and other researchers, because a lot of researchers will use AI-based software.
I've heard about that, to sort of start piecing everything together.
Right, and so it makes a little bit of predictive text occasionally to do this, right? Which is like 99% probably predictive and agreed upon, but...
Could be changing the meaning of shit and not
then
even
the Jewish,
knowing.
Right. There could be, it may not be what it's saying. It could be something else, and you can't leave that to a machine. The Orthodox Jewish people say, because it's the Word of God. It's the living Word of God.
So we got to find
change
it.
This. Yeah, we got to know.
Human being that wrote it, and then we got to find it.
Right, and if we don't, then we can't say.
Depending on the classification of each fragment, the interpretation of any given text could change dramatically. It's what we were just saying. The second challenge is that most of the scrolls were acquired not directly from 11 Qumran caves near the Dead Sea, but through antiquity.
Which we talked about, people selling it to them. Like, the locals went up there first and got that shit. That was found by this boy. They sent him out to get some goat patties to start fires.
Yeah, for fire starter, right?
Yeah, and he was he threw a rock at a cave, and it hit one of the clay containers, and the parchment inside just kind of plumed up because it was so brittle and it just so fine, and he thought that it was an ifrit. He thought it was like a djinn, right?
A spirit or a genie or something.
So he freaked out and went and got some more people, and they came back and they realized what it was, and at first they just started burning that shit. It was like, oh great, this is good. And then someone was like, it looks like you might get some money out of this from some of those weird Western people.
Sure shit. Okay, so as a result, it's not clear where many of the fragments came in the first place, making it much more difficult to piece them together into their proper historical context. Since their discovery, mainly in the late 1940s and 50s, scholars tried to put them together like a jigsaw puzzle, relying primarily on visible properties of the fragments in order to learn about their relationship to other fragments. I know.
There you go.
Could you imagine? Imagine having thousands of jigsaw puzzles, I don't know, you have no idea how many pieces away, and then mix them all together, and now go sort that shit out.
Now find a spiritual meaning out of it.
Truth is in there. In the new study, Rikavi and colleagues, including Noam Mizrahi, Tel Aviv University, Israel, and Matthias Jacobson, Uppsala University, Sweden, decided to look deeper for clues.
I love how they make you do the Hebrew accents and then all of a sudden throw some Swedish in there. Wait, what? Oh.
It's like changing gears.
It really is.
From each piece, they extracted ancient DNA of the animals that were used to make the parchments. Then, using a forensic-like analysis, they worked to establish the relationship between the pieces based on the DNA evidence and on scrutiny of the language within the text under investigation. Well, that could like narrow it down so that you still wouldn't necessarily know how to put them together, but you would have individual puzzles.
Yes. Yeah.
which would certainly make it a lot easier.
Yeah, it would.
And then if they ever find a new piece, they can just DNA test it, and then it should tell them exactly which group to go to.
Yeah.
The DNA sequences revealed that the parchments were mostly made from sheep, which wasn't known. The researchers then reasoned that pieces made from the skin of the same sheep must be related, and that scrolls from closely related sheep were more likely to fit together than those from more different. That makes sense. Yeah. Different sheep or other species. The researchers stumbled onto an interesting case in which two pieces thought to belong together were in fact made from different animals, sheep and a cow. Oh,
that's not good.
Well, these don't go to one of these things is not like the other. It suggested that they don't belong together at all. It sure did. The most notable example came from scrolls that comprise different copies of the biblical prophetic books of Jeremiah, which are also some of the oldest known scrolls.
Makes sense.
Analysis of the text found on these Jeremiah pieces suggests that they not only belong to different scrolls, they also represent different versions of the prophetic book. Wow. So they had an amalgamation is what they have of that book. They don't even have like what it originally said.
Yeah, that's called Q Gospels because the German word for mystery starts with a Q, apparently, and they call them Q Gospels. So what they find is they find the scroll, they read the scroll, they realize that part of the scroll is a copy, say, from the book of Mark, right? But the rest of it's something they'd never seen before that must come from some other book that was larger, like they just took a part of this larger book, but we don't know what that is. It took a part of Mark, and we know what that is, right?
Okay.
And we see a part, like 50% of Mark in this, right? But the rest of it's something else. And we can tell that it's like an excerpt, right, from a narrative.
Yeah.
But we have lost the narrative.
Boy, have we.
Yes, we have. The agenda is askewed.
You keep bumping the mic. The fact that the scrolls that are most divergent textually are also made of a different animal species is indicative that they originate at a different provenance.
Okay.
Most likely, he explains the cow fragments were written elsewhere because it wasn't possible to raise cows in the Judean desert.
Fair enough.
Oh, so they were it was like an imported
Like
Isaiah is what they're talking about. Okay. The discovery also has larger implications. The researchers write that the fact that different versions of the book circulated in parallel suggests that, quote, the holiness of the biblical book did not extend to its precise wording.
Read that again.
No. Okay, for loud for the people in the back.
Yes.
Right? Okay. The researchers write that the fact that different versions of the book circulated in parallel, same age, different animals.
Right, so two different books that are not the same.
Okay.
But
suggests that, quote, the holiness of the biblical book did not extend to its precise wording.
So this is why they probably were taking a little bit of Mark and a little bit of something we don't know.
Yeah, they were like taking the self-help books of the era.
Yes.
And taking parts they liked and throwing away the parts they didn't like and trying to distill it down into something bigger.
Exactly.
Today we call that Scientology.
Maybe so. And so they would argue over these distillations and separated themselves and really believed that this was the right set of messages that they were compiling here, which is why they were putting them in jars and sealing them up.
It says
for us today.
That's in contrast to the mutually exclusive texts that were adopted later by Judaism and Christianity. They note.
Yes, this Council of Nicene situation.
So these books now, the no letter can be. It's all all holy and all this, and no letter has ever been changed or whatever, is based on shit that was based on people going, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But now
with that Jewish accent, perhaps. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's good for the soul.
If I were a rich man. This teaches us about the way this prophetic text was read at the time and also holds clues to the process of the text's evolution.
Matt, I love Jewish people and I love Jewish culture, and I think that physically speaking that they're very attractive.
Well, you told me one time that if you were to ever pick a religion or an orthodoxy, it would be Judaism.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I truly, I'm not being facetious.
Oh, I know you're not. No,
I'm being absolutely serious. I am enthralled with the Jewish culture and the race.
Yeah, because you like ancient religions, but Judaism is one of your favorite
the sweet
to study,
spot,
right?
Yeah, it's the sweet spot, man.
Kind of is too, in a lot of ways.
So just to give you an example, I was talking with my friend Joshua Heinzman, and he writes music like me, and he had this vocalist, and he wanted us to do like a 3-way call, right?
Okay.
So we're all talking, and we're talking about everything but music. So at some point, I said, well, what do you guys think about music? I bet we could talk about that a little bit. And just being silly, they both kind of quite spontaneously together was like, oh, no, we wouldn't know anything about that. We don't, and I'm like, to be facetious, I was like, okay, fine, then let's just talk about mikvahs then. And little did I know that the lady I was talking to was an Orthodox Jewish person. And she says, wait, what did you say? And I'm like, a mikvah. She goes, did you just say mikvah? I'm like, yeah, the ritualistic bath that you would go and purify yourself in if you were an Orthodox Jew in case you touched something impure like a woman on her menstrual cycle. She goes, well, why did you say that? I'm like, I just kind of pulled it out of nowhere. And even Joshua had told her that like he'll pull something out of nowhere, just start talking about it. And I'm like, I was just being that way because you guys didn't want to talk about music. But it was so weird because all of the times I've maybe laid that card on the table in particular, that was the first time that someone was like, wait, what the hell did you just say? Like they absolutely knew what I was talking about. Yeah. It was really weird.
But didn't expect those words to be coming out of your face.
Right, yeah, just in a random conversation, right? Just deeply talking about something that most people don't even know about, right?
Right.
And it's like, no, man, I dig that. I really dig that.
Dude, I don't know, why you up? You go, well, we have, like you said, episodes 3, 4, whatever, like you can see that it's something that you're extremely interested in, yeah. Other highlights include insight into the relationship among different copies of a non-biblical liturgical work known as the Songs of the Sabbath Sacrifice, found in both Qumran and Masada. The analysis shows that the various copies found in the different Qumran caves are closely related genetically, but the Masada copy is distinct. The findings suggest that the work had a wider currency in the period. Quote, what we learned from the scrolls is probably relevant also to what happened in the country at the time. As the Songs of the Sabbath Sacrifice foreshadows revolutionary developments in poetic design and religious thinking, this conclusion has implications for the history of Western mysticism and Jewish liturgy. Liturgy, yeah. The evidence also confirmed that some other fragments of uncertain origin likely came from other places, and not the Qumran caves.
As they start realizing how diverse they were pulling from sources of those times.
Well, and people that they were buying these fragments from were just selling shit that maybe didn't even come out of that just because they happened to find it.
A whole thriving network of economics based on religious products.
Yeah. Well, those folks that run Hobby Lobby, the big, I think it's Hobby. Of course, I could be slandering Hobby Lobby. I'll probably be careful of this, but there's these people, and I know they run some sort of big box sort of hobby supply place, and they had been buying, they're also like an ultra or a really strict religious, Christian religious type people, and they had been collecting and buying off the black market artifacts and shit. And they got caught. They put them like in a museum. Was like, here, we're displaying them.
How much for the ossuary?
Then once people found, well, first of all, I think like more than half of the pieces in the collection were fakes.
Yeah.
And then like the ones that were real, they were forced to give back.
Right.
They had to give back to like the country's
international
origin.
law.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're just going to be throwing,
they don't get their money back.
If you're just going to be throwing money around, you're going to pull in fakes.
Yeah.
Like if you've got that kind of money and you're just throwing it around,
right?
And
Because
they know,
anybody that would validate it would narc on you.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up buying fake shit. Yep.
That's like like when I said how much for the ossuary. Ossuaries are like the resting places for the Jewish people of a certain time period. and they thought at one point they found Christ's ossuary.
I've heard that the naked archaeologist guy did a whole with the tomb of Christ or something like that.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I love that show.
It's a good show. But anyway, you were saying that
just that it was like then later it was proven to be fake, and then they said it wasn't. And like they're still kind of going back and forth, like the Shroud of Turin. Like every so often some piece of evidence comes out that validates that it is real,
and then the next year it's like, nope, still fake.
Yeah,
and then well, it's real again, and then it's fake.
Like there's patina on it. Oh, okay, so it's real. Oh, well, but you can fake that in this particular way. Oh, well, then maybe it's not real. Yeah, but
but it wasn't faked in this way. Yeah, right. I know, back and forth. In one case, the DNA evidence suggests a fragment from a copy of the biblical book of Isaiah. One of the most popular books in ancient Judea likely came from another site, which suggests to the researchers the potential existence of an additional place of discovery that still awaits identification.
Dude, I really like that book of Isaiah, but I really like the Turkish copy of it. Can you get me a Turkish copy? That's what really rings to me in my opinion.
Yeah, that's kind of what they're saying, though.
Yes.
Maybe not that...
Right. But that conversation probably happened in ancient times. I mean, if there's a market for it, there's probably a dude doing I need one from Turkey.
How many written languages were in that sort of Fertile Crescent, sort of Middle Eastern area back then? So there was probably different language written versions of it. Many different. Although the DNA evidence adds to understanding, it can only reveal part of the picture and not solve all the mysteries. The researchers had to extract DNA from tiny amounts of materials, what they refer to as scroll dust in certain cases, and say there are also many scrolls that have yet to be sampled and others that can't be for fear it might ruin them. Nevertheless, the researchers hope that more samples will be tested and added to the database to work toward a more complete Dead Scroll genome. They now think that they can apply the same methods to any ancient artifact that contains enough intact DNA or perhaps other biological molecules. It does have to be had to have been alive at some point for that to work, right? Yeah. That's some. So, but the thing is if let's say that there's a piece that's too small, but if they can identify enough color, fiber, ink, handwriting style, and like this matches all. We can't sample the DNA, but it matches 9 of the other 10 criteria. That gives them a high level of confidence that they can still put it in this pile over here. Yeah. So it's not like it's all or nothing per se.
And the way that characters were written in languages has been fairly well traced and documented. So when they see certain letters written in certain ways, they can say pretty definitively that had to be between this time period and this time period when these people were using that character to represent this thing.
Right.
LiDAR.
Oh no, we want to do this one?
Yes, we should at least do the LiDAR before closing.
Okay. This one comes from Science News. LiDAR reveals the oldest and biggest Maya structure yet found. Yeah, because I keep hinting about this.
You do. You talk about it.
I talk about it all the fucking time. I've never done an article on it.
And people need to know because they found a giant city.
Yeah, this is crazy. Excavations and airborne mapping unveil a society that from its beginnings built big. So not the little tiny weak society, the Cortez came in and went, knocked them all over.
Yeah, no.
Airborne remote sensing allowed scientists to create a 3D rendering of newly discovered
Aguada Phoenix. Maybe Phoenix?
Yeah, Aguada
Phoenix.
Like high Phoenix. Including the 3,000-year-old Maya site's massive ceremonial plateau with a platform and mound in its center.
Look at that.
That's a big...
It's like a big stage, a big sports arena, a big whatever you have.
And all these like terraced areas and stuff. So
yeah. And that's just the top, man. That Can you imagine how deep that might go? Like that could have been like the third story.
Well, they'll find out when they start digging. Like I gotta go look his name up. That guy that's got one leg, he's an archaeologist and does all this LiDAR shit. He's like crazy, dude. He goes hiking into the jungle and shit, but he's been doing this, I think, for National Geographic. I've got access to him. I just haven't watched him.
Wow.
Well, they're just going in and uncovering this stuff. So they're finding him on LiDAR, and then he's going there and leading expeditions or participating in expeditions into these places.
I first heard of LiDAR through the military, but I think this is a much better application.
Yeah. Ancient Maya society got off to a monumentally fast start around 3,000 years ago. Excavations and airborne mapping at a previously unknown site in Mexico called Aguada Phoenix have discovered the oldest and largest known structure built by the Maya people, say archaeologist Takeshi Inomata of the University of Arizona, Tucson. That might be him. That might be him. Let me go see.
Tashuki One Leg?
No, no, you one leg. Let's go see if that's him. Images. I think it's him. That's not him. That's not him. Okay, it's not him. Okay, so
It looks how I pictured him, though.
This raised ceremonial area made of clay and earth was constructed from around 1000 BC to 800 BC, the scientists reported in June 3rd in Nature. Aww. The new discovery adds to recent evidence that from its very beginnings around 3,000 years ago, the Maya civilization built monumental structures, a similar but smaller ritual area previously discovered by Inomata's team at a Maya site in Guatemala called Cybele, dates to 950 BC. The finds run counter to the idea that the Maya society developed gradually from small villages to urban centers with pyramids and other massive buildings. As some scientists have suggested, those Maya cities and kingdoms of what's known as the Classic period didn't flourish in part of southern Mexico and Central America until around 250 AD to 900 AD. What's more, the study is yet another example of how an airborne remote sensing technique called light detection and ranging, or LiDAR, is dramatically changing how archaeological research is done in heavily forested regions. Yeah, because they're using satellites for the shit in the desert. It's not LiDAR. The technique, which uses laser pulses to gather data on the contours of the jungle and vegetation-covered land, has uncovered other lost ruins at the Maya city of Tikal and Guatemala. Tikal, right, that's a big one. And a vast network connecting ancient cities of Southeast Asia's Khmer Empire, among other finds. So it's really, really cool shit, though, that all this stuff that they're finding. But yeah, what keeps happening, like, and this is happening here now too. Take the way that they understood South American societies to have evolved and just toss that out the fucking window.
Yeah.
And why should we be surprised? Because don't we attribute sort of the explosion in knowledge and architecture and technology of the ancient Egyptians with their ease and access to food, given that the Nile Delta flooded every year and you could basically plant like a nickel and grow $1? You know, it was like super fertile, right?
Sure, yeah.
And South America was no different. So those people would have had a leg up on protein availability of nourishment.
Well, just enough
brains
supply of food
to
get a group of people together so that the larger, denser population of people can divide up into specialists.
Well, right, and they'll start a philosopher class.
Yeah,
they'll start
an artesian class.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
and they start passing down institutional knowledge and stuff.
Yep,
very important. I argue that society would not have made it without the religious period. Because we would all got syphilis from fucking each other and died.
Well, some of the earliest architectural structures are religious in nature.
Sure, yeah.
Like Göbekli Tepe, right?
Yeah.
And many other ones, Stonehenge and things. So some of the first ways that we cooperated together and congregated together and did any of this architecture or any of this studying of the sky or the seasons was through ritualistic religious purposes. So yeah, absolutely wouldn't have been the same without that.
Yep.
And only once cities started forming in the Sumerian and Egyptian period did you start seeing that stratification from an egalitarian society into a stratified society. When you start seeing, the laws coming from the gods and the kings being as big and all of that. That's where you start that separation. Now you've got your priest class, your leaders. You've got the vulture stele, which shows your warrior class, and of course, in the Sumerian period, we find all these bowls, these clay bowls. So there was this mass production of these particular sized bowls. So it gives you the impression that there was certain things that were rationed out in terms of not how much you're getting, but like you're going to buy 3 bowls of something. 3 bowls of this grain, perhaps, right? They had some
it was like
standard
everyone had a measuring cup.
Essentially,
but they were all basically the same size.
Yeah, they had a lot of standard measurements and things.
Oh, interesting.
A lot of weird stuff started happening. And then we've talked about how the Epic of Gilgamesh talks about prostitution coming along with that as one of the specializations.
How many bowls for a blowjob?
Oh yeah, right. Of what? Yeah,
right.
and you know, yeah, and you know, negotiations, and you're civilizing people, right? Because instead of going through a ritualistic religious process to have the woman, or raping and pillaging to have the woman, you now are civilized, and you have this negotiation where, philosophically speaking, the woman is allowing you to control her because she's also getting something out of that, and vice versa. So,
well, trade removed violence, doesn't it? Trade removes violence.
Yeah.
But
just like when they talk about making drugs legal and keeping people from being shot and killed over illegal drug trade.
Funny how prohibition killed everybody in the 20s, but today it's not having any effect whatsoever.
Right, people are delivering beer and they're just fine.
No, I mean, like, anyway. In the new study, researchers turned to LiDAR to peer through forests in Tabasco, Mexico, and uncover the previously hidden surface remains of 21 ceremonial centers, including Aguada Phoenix. LiDAR maps showed that that each site contains a round or square mound near a long rectangular platform running west to east. This is where the UFOs land. Mm-hmm. The latest characterizes similar structures in areas where public rituals were held in many later Maya cities.
You say that, but there was a Tic Tac.
This is true. We've reported on that a lot. We even had a
whole show.
Yeah, we even had a physicist come on and talk about. Oh no, that wasn't about that. Never mind.
Well, we did talk about it.
Yeah, but we did talk about it with him a little bit. Gareth. Inamada's team then used LiDAR maps to focus on Aguada Fine. There is scientists found an elevator. Did I read this already? Okay, elevator rectangular plateau measuring about 1,400 meters long and nearly 400 meters wide. That's big. Within that space is a roughly 400-meter-long platform, the length of more than 4 American football fields.
Why does academia always try to give its examples of space in football field lengths?
In American football, because Americans don't understand meters.
And I don't understand American football field lengths.
So you're fucked either way.
I am.
Well, you understand meters.
I do, but I'm not as familiar with them as I probably should be.
It's funny because you point that out, but really that's like... So they write the article, and for you stupid Americans,
it's more than 4 American.
More than 4 football fields.
They'll do that with like asteroids and stuff, and I'll be like, "So how big is it? Like, what's that got to do with mass and everything?" Like, the mass of 4 football fields.
It says LiDAR revealed other structures around the human-built plateau, included in rectangular buildings, plazas, and several reservoirs. That's good shit, though, man. I mean, like, this is going to be, if we don't all die,
we'll have a place to move back to. Somewhere in the jungle. We'll have to all move to the jungle and reclaim these places.
I didn't put the article about the massive tropical storms, largest ever. So whoever had hurricanes for June, I guess you win.
Yeah.
It might be you might be right about that. You might want to double down. It's looking pretty rough. What the fuck, Eric? What is going on? So many cool things. I also seen something, I didn't grab it, but about using graphene now and new microprocessors where they're programming at the atomic or building them at the atomic level.
Oh, that's nice.
Graphene's part of that, so
that's real nice.
Yeah, super, 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 super tiny.
Yeah.
1, 2 atom, 3 atom, 4, 5 atom, 6 atoms. So, you got anything else you want to rap about tonight, Mr. Smith? I can't think of anything. No. All right, thanks for listening, everybody. Check us out at www.noshitcast.com. That's KNOWSHITCAST.com. Make sure you hit those like and subscribe buttons. Leave us a comment. We might get back to you. Give us a share. We greatly appreciate it. We will catch you all next time. Thanks for listening, everyone. Talk to you